Welcome to Fleet Auto News Podcast. I'm Caroline Falls, and today I'm talking with automotive expert Dickson Leow, who recently joined Innovative Mechatronics Group as General Manager. His mission there is to develop so-called circular power solutions. What does that even mean? Well, it's all part of the circular economy, and that's great because it's something I'm deeply interested in after doing a SAP course last year. Now, this is FAN's first podcast for 2022, and we are going to pursue themes of future mobility and sustainability through the year. We also have a sponsor, Sofico Services, and we would like to thank them for the support and making this podcast possible. Now, a little bit more about Dickson. Before IM Group, he was Leader of Technology and Mobility Future at the Australian Road Research Board. He has 25 years' experience in the automotive world, including in vehicle engineering and design, vehicle safety, regulation and law in both private and government sectors in Australia and Japan. He was Ambassador for Toyota Australia in fuel cell vehicle technology and was also an Australian committee expert drafting international standards for future transport mobility. I'm going to start my chat with Dickson there. Welcome, Dickson.
Thanks, Caroline. It's really good to be here and to share with some insights with your listeners. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate you having the time for us. Now, we talked a couple of years ago about your role on an international panel setting standards for autonomous vehicles. Are you still on that panel, and where are we up to? What are some of the latest challenges the panel is concentrating on?
Thanks, Caroline. No, unfortunately, I'm no longer with the International Standards Committee, so to speak, which was drafting the Connected Automated Vehicle Standards, as I've moved away from my previous role at ARB. But, many great works by the committee members of the ISO committee, where they've drafted Level 4 standards for low-speed automated driving, and many others are just about to be published. As new technology being innovated and becomes available, the committee will review its merits for standardization. Things you may have heard of, such as automated valet parking or truck platooning. Those are some of the standards that they'll be drafting over the next year or so. So my current focus is about EV, as you mentioned, and hybrid power solutions. So it enables a sustainable circular economy. And what that means is that we look at the spent or the used EV batteries to be remanufactured and saved from so-called landfill or rubbish dump, and to be utilized to power factories and commercial businesses. And of course, I can share much more details if we get time, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. We will definitely get on to that. First, I just wanted to say, though, I saw you register your interest in a post on LinkedIn on what's going on in Singapore and its rollout of an autonomous vehicle plan for the city-state. Can you tell us what lessons Singapore is bringing about that we could learn from?
Yeah, most definitely. As you may or may not be aware, and I'm sure some of your listeners will be aware of, Singapore has a Master Plan 2040, which they shared about the long-term vision of the transportation system and how they integrate the cities from an approach where each level has a specific functional network within that ecosystem. So this is also somewhat similar to South Korea with their plan for their clean energy-based smart city in Jeju Island. So the learnings from Singapore or South Korea could be extrapolated to cater for other regions and even to use as a leapfrog, so to speak, for overcoming barriers. One of the lessons, by bringing along people along this journey is to hear what they think or how it may look like, and to create a human-centric or human centricity perspective. This human centricity, reminded me of when I was with Toyota back in the early 2000s, where they had a holistic ecosystem for intelligent transport system, where each segments play a very crucial central role around this human centricity, of the comfort, the convenience, the ecology, and the safety, and how the technology and the data are interrelated and interconnected to form this smart mobility society. So I think the key point for smart mobility for the people is how energy is used and harnessed. And getting back to the focus that I'm very much interested in is about sustainable circular economy.
Right. So these are mass transit vehicles like trains, trams, and buses, I guess. What about autonomous cars? Realistically, how far into the future are they? I've heard at least maybe another decade. What's your view?
Very good question, Caroline. Very good question. It's interesting when we talk about autonomous or automation. I guess it needs to be having a clear scope in terms of what is automation. Because automation, whether we know it or not, is actually already here. The legislation hopefully is around the corner and will follow suit. It's interesting you raised the question because a few weeks ago, the German authority actually has approved certification for level 3 automation, meaning that the vehicle can drive itself in a certain environment without the driver intervention. However, the driver, of course, is still in the loop, so to speak. Where the vehicle essentially can change lane by itself, or detect any slowing of movement, and it can drive the vehicle itself on a highway. And of course, as I mentioned, being a level 3, the driver is still responsible and needs to monitor the situation and be in control if necessary. Level 4, automated driving, or so-called low-speed driving, is already with us in the UK. Milton Keyes, shuttles has been transporting people around from point A to point B to point C and D. And even here in Australia, AbbVie and ARB has been involved in many demonstration and pilot trials of automated vehicles or shuttles, such as having the pilot in La Trobe Uni or Olympic Park in Sydney, or more recently Adelaide Oval and the Convention Centre in South Australia. Although low speeds, these are all automated driving, especially level 4, meaning that no driver is necessary, and there's no actual steering wheel per se. So realistically, the future is here from a technology viewpoint, but to commercialize and to operate can be a while yet, so to speak, as we draft the legislation, the regulations and licenses. With emphasis on safety and safe operations, of course, is still some time away. Currently, as we all know, the rule mandates the driver to be still in control. Even if there's any automated function being activated, the driver needs to take careful consideration from that perspective and be in control. So the other point that I talked about is the scope of operating environment, and the interaction with the people also needs to be careful, to be considered carefully. Like trams and people, how they talk about trams being like a rhino, and then how we also separate the people and the pedestrians. So all this consideration, how if we have a shuttle, how do we ensure the safe operation? Another consideration is the energy usage to power these vehicles, as many will no doubt be electrified in some way and draw their power or their operations from the grid and so forth. So the sustainable circular economy becomes quite apparent and quite important, Caroline.
Well, your last point makes a good segue to really where we want to take our conversation today. You were co-author of a paper late last year on the so-called circular economy. This grabbed my attention. As I said earlier, I was at that time studying a 3-month course on the circular economy. So let's talk about that. First, I'll let you explain in a nutshell what the circular economy is.
Sure. Thank you. Well, A circular economy, in a nutshell, I guess, is about utilizing and reusing what is already in the system or in the ecosystem, and not to only recoup and minimize waste, but to create value from the material. But a sustainable circular economy is more than just reusing the material minerals going around. It is about putting in place opportunities and holistic approaches with support from multiple stakeholders and supply chain to map out a journey to mitigate the issues and challenges, the processing of recycling, the manufacturing or remanufacturing, and the repurposing of used and spent components. So this is somewhat, I guess, as part of why I wrote the paper, was that this was somewhat the DNA of IM Group, where we base our operations on the 3 Rs. The 3 Rs being remanufacture, recycle, and reduce. So therefore, in the context of EV and hybrid batteries, in creating a sustainable circular economy for the battery electric vehicle, or BEV, or the hybrid vehicles, the battery remanufacturing, perspective, the brand Injectronics is addressing an area of concern surrounding this life cycle of these batteries. The sustainable economy allows for batteries to be reassessed and repacked and balanced into full modules. And these packs from the active cells or from vehicles which can no longer be used for their intended purposes, where they propel the vehicle engine, where they can be reused for static energy storage or other application. So after multiple cycles where these cells are now really considered so-called dead, quote unquote, they can be treated as part of their end-of-life process, and the minerals or the materials are recirculated back into production, with breaking them down to components where they can be used to make or manufacture other products again. Because the lithium, the cobalt, and what have you, you no longer have to mine for them. They are they are significantly reduced in terms of this process. So what I mean by reduce is by reusing retired hybrid or lithium batteries for production of battery energy storage, where we can reduce these raw materials being mined or being farmed. And the potential benefit includes offsetting the initial manufacturing impacts. We extend the battery life that is already in the ecosystem, and to give the second use of those batteries. In terms of remanufacturing, it's about these healthy packs and cells and parts being reused, whether they be the sensors, the relays, and what have you, repurposed for second use application. Such as I mentioned, battery energy storage systems. And the recycling or recycle is where these packs are originally being used. They are unhealthy. They're no longer suitable for automotive usage or what have you, or they may not even be suitable for the battery energy storage system. But they do contain valuable minerals and materials such as lithium, cobalt, like I mentioned. And these could be a way of recovery for these materials or minerals in a sustainable state where identify as part of this circular economy and supply chain. So all in all, that's what we're trying to do in terms of what this whole circular or sustainable circular economy is about.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I can't help but put in my own definition of the circular economy here. I see it as a recognition that the earth can't forever deliver to us natural resources, nor can it forever regenerate. This is essentially what the linear economy is that we presently exist within, depends on, that the earth will provide infinite resources and regenerate ad infinitum. The circular economy instead relies on designing products and systems that account for and reuse or recycle, and as you say, remanufacture the elements and materials used. And now, as you said, your paper focuses on EV and hybrid battery technology and how it fits into the circular economy. But essentially, how do they fit into the circular economy?
Thanks, Caroline. I like your definition as well. It's somewhat
Thank
aligned
you.
with what I've said previously. Now, in terms of, I guess, the question that you pose about, how do they fit into this circular economy? Well, I guess the concept is about what we can do to ensure a sustainable approach of these used electric vehicle and hybrid batteries. As you may not know, although the electric vehicle and hybrid batteries may not be operational after it's depleted for more than 80% of the chargeable capacity, many of these are thrown away, and hopefully they are not end up in landfill or rubbish tip, by proper end of life treatment. However, these battery cells still have 80% of its energy capacity. So, what we're trying to do is to harness these cells for other application, as mentioned before, where we try and remanufacture a optimal battery. So let's look at it closely, and I'll start with the hybrid batteries, right? So the hybrid sales in 2019, as some of you may or may not know, is a little over 31,000 units. And, having from Toyota and other brands like Honda, Mitsubishi, and Hyundai for over the last couple of decades, there's tens and thousands of these hybrid batteries or drive batteries. They are potentially out of warranty and maybe needing replacement. So we're talking about, few thousands to tens of thousands of units a year. So these hybrid batteries, could potentially end up in landfill, and hopefully, rather than landfill, they are being properly treated. But anyway, the hybrid battery program is about a remanufacturing program where we have what we call this program in collaboration with the government, where Injectronics will forward the customer a high quality remanufactured manufactured battery that has undergone extensive evaluation and assessment of the cells, the modules, and the components. They are so-called plug and play, ready to use, with all the fittings of the components ready for install. The problem with these old batteries from Priuses and what have you, or Camrys, is that they generally have an error in the battery management system where, the battery management system monitors the modules, and when it detects a failing module where, it goes below that 80% or whatever that percentage is, it registers a fault code where it sends to your vehicle saying that, please see your mechanic or your workshop to rectify the issue. And usually it means that this whole battery pack is replaced. So we take the whole battery out and replace with a new one from the manufacturer. But at Injectronics, what we're trying to do is that these hybrid battery packs are reassessed and regraded. The pack may not be operational, but the modules or even the sub-level cells individually may be okay. So what Injectronics do is that we remanufacture the whole battery pack from the ground up, where each cell is tested, verified, and then they are paired with the modules, which are again tested and verified, and then they put into a pack where it's fully balanced, and this remanufactured pack can now be essentially be put into the vehicle for usage. So that's what we're trying to do from a hybrid battery perspective. The other program, which is in collaboration with Sustainability Victoria, is more specifically looking at EV batteries or the lithium batteries, where we try to look at the battery, the spent battery or the used battery for other applications. So no longer automotive. So the batteries, so to speak, are no longer suitable for vehicle again, due to whatever reason. But we can use it for other application where they potentially could save tons of CO2, as a second life cycle, so to speak. And based on very early stages of pilot and assessment, a typical 120 kilowatt hour unit from what we're trying to do in the pilot program could potentially save about 42 tons of CO2 equivalent for a typical commercial entity, so to speak. And then the EV battery is found to be no longer having any capable capacity. It is then broken down into its end-of-life procedures and treatment. Again, the plastics, the chemicals, and the metals are properly sorted, properly treated by a certified recycler. So we enable these raw materials and minerals to be used as stock for creation of possible other application, whether it be new EVs, new EV batteries again. But what it is a sustainable circular economy.
We'll be back after a short break for a word from our sponsor, Sofico Services.
Sofico is a world-leading provider of enterprise software for the automotive leasing, finance, and mobility industry. For more than 30 years, international leasing companies and OEMs count on Sofico's expertise and technology to help them transform innovative product concepts into streamlined business processes and engaging customer experiences. With more than 370 experts, 8 offices on 4 continents, and an annual growth averaging 15%, Sofico is perfectly positioned to help its customers succeed in a rapidly changing market where electrification, shared fleets, and multimodal mobility challenge us and our customers to play a pioneering role. Continuous investment in people, innovation, and leading-edge technology is the basis for continued growth and success.
That's just such great news to hear that someone in Australia is gathering up end-of-life vehicle batteries and reusing them. I guess our Fleet Auto News audience is an important one for you. How can fleet managers and fleet maintenance managers help you? What do you want them to do? Do they need to develop a policy for batteries?
Yeah, again, very, very good question, Caroline, and I'm very grateful that your audience, the Fleet or the news audience, can listen to this and be aware of it, I guess, and it is great to share with this fleet industry or this environmentally sustainable opportunity. It is a discussion we're having with many OEMs and the automotive industry in general, and how they could assist. I guess it's very similar to the fleet operation and your fleet audience right here. The process or the process is quite simple in a sense that for the hybrid battery perspective, you can call Injectronics, and then we can swap out a batteries. Currently is Toyota Camrys, 40 and 50 series, and Generation 2 Priuses, but more models are added to the lineup. Or you can go online to hybrid.injectronics.com.au, or your trained workshop can do that for you. So what we're trying to say is that from that perspective, you're no longer throwing away a whole battery pack, so to speak. But then for the EV battery, the lithium battery that I'm talking about with Sustainability Victoria, there is a process where we are happy to work with your fleet operators and fleet operations or company as a program to collect some of these EV batteries and what have you, and reuse for other applications, like I mentioned before, for energy storage or what have you. So I'm more than happy, for your fleet audience to give me a call or even email me at dixonl@imgroup.com.au, or I'm sure you can provide to your audience in some way. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. I guess I'm not sure we've pointed out, but Injectronics is a unit of IM Group, yeah?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you tell us what's been happening to end-of-life vehicle batteries to date in Australia, or what can happen, what you want to see happen to them?
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's part of the reason why I'm so involved in this particular program, is that currently many of these date batteries, whether it be the hybrid batteries or the EV batteries, many of them still have vast amount of energy capacity still in them, being thrown away. And suspected some of these may have found their way to landfill, as many people may not know what to do with them. Of course, we keep emphasizing, and I know the OEMs are offering cashbacks for some of these dead batteries as a way to ensure that they are recycled properly as part of end-of-life treatment for the end-of-life recyclers. But where, they are broken down, into these elements as mentioned before, it is quite important they are properly treated. However, there's potential large amount of wasted energy, like I mentioned, that's stored that's just not used and not being resourceful. And from my understanding from many different sources, the Australian recyclers are not always ready for the lithium battery, so to speak, as some of the equipment and processes might be a couple of years away. So this process that I've just mentioned and this program from IM Group would potentially assist in this transition where we can enable a sustainable circular economy and a environmentally sound approach, I guess. And as stated in the paper, in my paper, if no actions were to be taken to facilitate a sustainable circular economy, it is not only unfortunate from an economic perspective, but it is an environmental disaster in that sense, because the last thing we want is for any of these batteries to end up in landfill.
Absolutely, the last thing we want. We will not let that happen. Now, I know battery technology is advancing rapidly. What sort of drive life does a vehicle battery have? How many kilometres or recharges or years can one expect from a vehicle battery manufactured in, say, 2021? I guess what I'm digging for here is, will fleet managers realistically be stewards for battery reuse, given that vehicles are generally rolled out of fleets after 3 or 4 years?
Sure. Again, a very, very good question and clarification. I guess, a lot of the new vehicles, especially new EVs or hybrid vehicles, generally have the warranty period covered by the manufacturers for, the first 3 years, 5 years, or even 8 years as part of the drive battery, so to speak. So generally, fleet managers and fleet operators with new fleet may not have any concerns. But I guess, as I mentioned, it is about the awareness. It is important that, if we were to purchase these new vehicles post their warranty periods, such as, people could have it as part of their company vehicles, but may choose to purchase the vehicle after that and what have you, it is very important that now there is that an alternative which is environmentally sustainable, and more importantly, they can address the sustainable circular economy where the manufacturers have a sustainable program for the treatment of these electric vehicles or hybrid battery vehicles, not just at the point of sale where it's just purchase a vehicle and forget. So it's a more holistic perspective, which is why we call it sustainable, right, in that sense. And at the end of the day, Caroline, you, myself, and I'm sure all your listeners want to be responsible for our environment, don't we?
I think so, and I do feel that increasingly everybody's getting on board with that. Now, let's just talk about you a little bit. Like last year you moved to the Innovative Mechatronics group from ARB, and indeed your circular economy paper was prepared in collaboration with ARB. And I should say for readers and listeners here that I intend to put a link to your paper in my written report on this interview. And but meanwhile, can you tell us a little bit more about IM and your role there? Is it a newly created role?
Sure. So my ex-colleague, Dr. Robert Cohen, had a special interest in electrification, and he's worked on a number of the electrification projects with me previously at ARB. So, I've asked him to assist me in some of the sections of this paper that I've just written, because he's also an economist from that perspective. So, interesting, my role. Well, firstly, maybe I'll share a little bit about IM Group. So IM Group is a automotive supplier servicing the original equipment manufacturers, or OEMs as we call them, and the aftermarkets with brands such as Injectronics, as I've mentioned a couple of times, MAP, GOS, and also genuine parts for OEMs. The remanufacture or the sale of these components of electronics and mechatronics components such as fuel pumps, throttle bodies, injectors, remote key fobs, ECUs, etc. All part of what IM Group do and sell, so to speak. And IM Group was established in 1983, but about 3 years ago it was purchased by GUD and is now part of the GUD company, which is a ASX 200 listed company. And GUD owns a group of companies in Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, US, and China, predominantly in the automotive and the water industry. So you may have heard of some of these brands such as DBA Brakes, Ryco Filters, Vision X Lighting, Brown and Watson. They're all part of the GUD family. So in terms of my role, well, it is a newly created role within IM Group. I'm the general manager, as mentioned, and my role is to really develop and expand the business in EV and hybrid power solution, as well as to bring awareness, I guess, in terms of this future mobility, whether it be electric vehicles, connected automated vehicles, intelligent transport system, hydrogen, etc., and basically how it may impact the automotive industry.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I think, maybe our sort of last question, we're recording this podcast as the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is sweeping through Australia and indeed the world, disrupting supply chains and overwhelming systems, particularly the healthcare system. Is this focus on dealing with the pandemic stalling developments in things like the circular economy or autonomous vehicles, or is it providing opportunities? Maybe a bit of both. I'm interested in your experience, what you think.
Sure. Well, to be honest, Caroline, I guess the pandemic has assisted in highlighting areas of interest or, depending how you look at it, concerns. Because, at the end of the day, importantly, what it has done is that it identify where we can improve from an internal process perspective to supply chain ecosystem to the multifaceted stakeholders of this whole automotive or transport industry. But more importantly, it's about how this whole circular economy, including how people interact or lack of, and the strain of this transportation where we take for granted. So I think this pandemic has allowed us to, tackle issues and look at things differently from the normal, if you like, because it just allows a different lens, so to speak, because of this pandemic.
It's definitely brought us all together.
Yeah.
So let's call that an end, and I just want to say thank you very much for your insights, Dickson. It's amazing, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
No, thank you very much, Caroline, for the time and the opportunity to talk to you and your audience today. It's really much appreciated. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Fleet Auto News podcast. It was edited and produced by Isabella Fiorentino. Thank you again to our new sponsor, Sofico Services. It's great to have you on board. The original theme music for this podcast was created by Isabella Fiorentino. You can follow us on Spotify. Just search for Fleet Auto News. We're also on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Our website is fleetautonews.com, where you can get all our stories, videos and podcasts. Until next time, drive safely